Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the United Star. I'm Prasham Kothari, and I have the absolute pleasure of introducing the founder and one of the many faces of All for United, Ben Pearce. We've obviously done a lot of videos with All for United on the women's game, and on that front, and Atanu and Natalie have conversed multiple times on this channel, on Twitter, and I'm hoping that you all can go and check that content out and support the women's team as well. But we've got Ben here for the first time to talk about Manchester United, and especially the game that's coming up in the Champions League against Atalanta, which, in my opinion, is absolutely crucial the way things stand in this group. So, welcome, Ben, and thank you for giving your time to us.
No worries, mate. Thank you. And thank you for spreading light on our women's channel as well. All for United WFC. They're doing some great stuff over there. And Natalie, just one of the people involved. You know, it's not just what she does for All for United over there on that channel. It's what she does for women's football. It's what she does for the academy football. It's what she does for Manchester United football fans. A lot of people out there don't know Natalie's stories. And that's why I love doing this, is you get to learn. I've just learned a lot about you. Chatting to you for 5 minutes, you get to learn a lot about fans and their stories, where they've come from, why they love United, what they're doing, and it's just good to be able to, in some ways, it's like a mini networking session, isn't it? You're able to talk to new people and get to know them, and you'll have one intention, that's just to chat about the game and obviously the club you love. So yeah, it's good that I can jump on and support you, mate. Well done. As I said off record, you're doing some really good content. It's diverse, it's different, and you're committed. And that's the hardest thing about fan channels. What a lot of people don't see, it's having the time and the commitment to be able to do as much stuff as you want to do. And you guys are killing it. So well done to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben, for those kind words. And let's sort of dive straight into it with what's happening at the club. Let's face it, since the hype of Cristiano Ronaldo coming to United, apart from a game, maybe two if you want to push it, things have not gone well for us. So first of all, I want to ask you this is, where do you think sort of the downfall has begun, and how have we gotten to this point where we're in this rut? Because we can keep saying as long as we want that we don't have a CDM, but we didn't have one last season either. And we weren't playing such football where you literally don't feel like watching. So how have we gotten into this rut, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think United's issues under Ole have been evident ever since he signed on as a permanent manager. I think we had that honeymoon stage where he was fantastic, but I think then from his first full season through to now, we've always had the same issue. Where does Pogba play his best football? Where does he fit in? Defensively, not good enough. Silly mistakes, sloppy errors, concentration, maturity, keeping hold of the ball, having a style of play. I think all these questions have come up over the last 2 years under Ole, but I think ultimately the pressure has never been on Ole like it has been now. He has got a team now which should be competing on all fronts for every trophy that there is to have, and of course mounting a serious challenge. Now, that's not me turning around and saying he must win every trophy and the Premier League. That's me saying that this team is good enough to be at the very top of English football. And it should be there. And I think right now the issue is that with where we're at, United have gone out of a cup competition. So that's one less trophy Ole has a chance of winning. We've made an extremely poor start to another cup competition, which last year we saw some of his decision-making really on show and evident on how poor it was. And it sort of happened again. It's reoccurring incidents that are happening at the club and with Ole and his decision-making and tactically how we play. And I think I made this point on the weekend review, which I've done on our channel earlier on today. And I'll put this thread out on Twitter. I watched the highlights. I watched the extended highlights. I listened to the game on 5 Live, and then I watched the game back. And if we're judging United on solely that Leicester performance, then you'll say it's done. Enough's enough. It's done. Like we have no hope. There is no hope whatsoever because he's lost the players. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think if there's one thing, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, Prasham, that's been consistent under Ole, it's that the players have been with him. Now, for them to randomly, just after the international break, all completely down tools in that first game after the international break, it makes no sense. Like, it makes no sense at all. So I'm going to put Saturday down to a bit of naivety from Ole when it comes to his team, when it comes to playing players who clearly weren't fit enough, Maguire being one of them. Tactical naivety in terms of that he left too much space, and he clearly hasn't adopted his style of play around having such an amazing player like Cristiano Ronaldo up top. He hasn't, and it gets found out in games against hard-working teams like we've seen with Everton, Aston Villa, and then recently Leicester. So he hasn't learned. He hasn't sort of picked up that nous yet to be able to counter that and put a team out to be able to perform with someone like Ronaldo in it. But also, I'm going to put it down to a really bad day at the office against a very good side, because I think that's what we're forgetting here. Leicester were brilliant. They were brilliant. United were never in the game. 2 goals flatter us. It really does. United were never in that game. And we were because of moments of brilliance, and that was it. And I think at times we've gone, United have won games for moments of brilliance. But how many times have we called United second half FC? Well, we've not come out and performed in the first half, but the second half we've been brilliant. We haven't even seen that recently or against Leicester. So I do think that the game against Leicester, unfortunately, emphasised our bad points and our poor points. And I think, unfortunately, because they were emphasised and because we haven't been in a good run of form, it sort of pointed to a complete downhill trajectory in every sense of the matter. And maybe that's a false perspective a little bit on where Manchester United currently are at. But maybe also it's giving some United fans a realisation of, well, actually, if there is a downhill trajectory here, we need to get off it ASAP. Otherwise, we will not be those title challengers. We will not be those cup contenders. We are just going to be a mediocre side under a manager who can't take us to that next step. Very long-winded answer, but those are my thoughts at the moment in terms of the situation we're in. But I will say we will learn a lot, not just about Ole. I don't agree with this whole thing that the next 5 to 6 games are make or break for Ole. They're not just make or break for Ole. They're make or break for this whole entire team for this season. Because if we don't come out of the next 5 or 6 games intact, the season's over. We're not going to mount the title challenge. We'll probably be out of the Champions League. And then what hope do you have going into the FA Cup in the new year when clearly confidence isn't there and the ethic's not there? So for me, it's a make or break 6 weeks, but not just for the manager, 6 games, sorry, but not just for the manager, for the team as well.
I think you raise a lot of fair points there. And I mean, you're completely right that the Leicester game in the sense sort of typified sort of the worst that there is. But my fundamental worry is born from just that I feel like we've been playing like this since that sort of, look at young boys, Villarreal, you look at Aston Villa, Everton, you look at all these games, we've sort of been putting in these kind of performances, but we've been getting away because those teams aren't sort of as good as Leicester are on paper. And if you look at the next set of fixtures, we are up against it. We are facing some of the best teams in England and Europe potentially. And that is where I genuinely worry, because we haven't played a top team yet and we've fallen apart so many times. And if the Liverpool that turned up against Man City the other day, if they turn up against us and we haven't got our act together, it could get really ugly. But let's get to the Champions League.
Can I quickly just say though, Prashant, on that? Sorry to butt in. You mentioned a good point before this. Actually, the tougher games we're not as worried about. We've actually historically we've performed better in the tougher games than we have against these workhorse-like sides. I agree with you that unfortunately the consistent trajectory in terms of what our faults aren't improving. For example, you know, Ramsey, the coach, came in at the start of the season. We were harping on about how we've improved from set pieces. Well, we've conceded 3 or 4 goals in our last 3 games from set pieces now. Mm-hmm. What improvement? Maybe that was just pure luck at the start of the season that we were looking better. And now all of a sudden we're seeing it again. Again, coming back to it, Lindelof and Maguire as a partnership, it just doesn't work, does it? People harping on about Lindelof's ball, but defensively is shocking. You know, Wan-Bissaka and Shaw, no man's land for most of the game. Pogba, you know, a phenomenal footballer, fantastic footballer. Put him in a pivot and it's like he can't even play bloody championship level. It's crazy on how these players. I don't know. This is why for me Leicester's in a bit of an isolation, because no one on the pitch put in even a 5 out of 10 performance against Leicester, and we can't say that that's the way normally. Usually we grind out a result, or we do something, or we get a moment of magic and we say, Bruno Fernandes, what a player, everyone else is shite, but 9 out of 10 for Bruno Fernandes. We rarely get that performance. The last time we had a performance like that was like that game against Everton, Do you remember? Was it 4-1 at Goodison or something like that? It was a 4-0, maybe a thrashing.
Yeah.
And our form after that was really good. And I think we went into a tough run of games after that as well. So look, I'm never going to come on anyone's channel or even my own or All for United and go, Ollie out. He's not a legend, blah, 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 because that's just all nonsense. I'm going to support United and I'm going to be optimistic, just like I was at the start of the season when I said we'll win the league, we'll win it all, because that's what I am as a Manchester United fan. So right now, I'd rather turn around and go, look, we start again, we pick ourselves up, we go. Here's a slightly different perspective from my mind. Ultimately, he deserves all the criticism he gets. Everyone is allowed their opinion on every single player, the manager, decisions, etc. But this is what's in my head, and this is what I'm thinking. And going into Atalanta, you're right. It's a really important game, and these fixtures coming up are really important, but they don't scare me as much. They honestly don't scare me as much as I was thinking Everton and Villa at home, because you just know that there's a banana skin waiting to sort of slip on. Do you know what I mean? Whereas form goes out the window in the Manchester derby. Form goes out the window when we invite Liverpool to Old Trafford on Sunday.
But does it go out of the window against Atalanta? Because you look at this game, it's not only crucial. I think a draw would be a very it could be a very dangerous result for United, because we have 4 points from the first 3 games. I think it could be a very dangerous result for United. And in my opinion, I think we need this win against Atalanta, not just to create momentum, but almost to secure the first, ensure that we can get that first spot in the group. Because that's what I'm after, right? Because you know it, that if we finish second, we're going to get one of the big boys in Europe and we'll get beat. And then people are going to turn around and say that, well, obviously we were going to lose to them. But the point is, if you finish first, your chances of advancing improve much more. The young boys game was inexplicable. I know we went down to 10 men, but to just play the way we did after having the lead, the way we played was inexplicable in my opinion. The Villarreal game was just, Ronaldo just came good. So I don't understand. Whenever we play in the Champions League under Ole, that fears me. The Liverpool game, I agree with you, but I don't know if I'm confident going into Atalanta, because in my mind, we need a win. I don't think a draw will be good enough.
But like Sir Alex always said, win your home games, get something from your away games. Now, one of the away games, we haven't got anything. And let's face it, it was a last minute error more than anything that lost us getting something from that game. Although I agree, the performance was not good enough. Again, inexperience of Ole in a Champions League game, like he showed against Leipzig, like he showed against PSG with the Fred decision, has come back to bite his arse. You've got to be quicker, you've got to think on your feet, but also you've got to be a little bit more composed when you make these decisions in the Champions League, because, although these what you might call minnows from other leagues, might not be the favourites going into games with Manchester United. They're still experienced teams who have a winning mentality and will fight on the biggest stage for the biggest result. And the biggest result for them, the biggest stage for them, is a Champions League night at Old Trafford or a Champions League night at home to Manchester United. So these games mean more to these teams. The Atalanta are a great side. They're really well drilled. That's what concerns me. They're really well drilled. But I would say that at home, yes, I'm a bit more concerned than I am going to Italy. But these 2 games are really important. You must take maximum points, 100%. We must take maximum points on Wednesday. You don't lose your home games, and you definitely don't draw your home games. Now, if we can get a win at home to Atalanta, I'm going to be fairly confident, because I think we'll beat Young Boys at home. I can't see us not beating Young Boys at home. And I think we'll get at least a point then away to Atalanta and away to Villarreal. I think ultimately then what we're looking at, we'll be on 9-10 points, I think, if my maths aren't right. I don't know, I haven't got it up in front of me. But I think that's enough to get you through this group, because neither side yet has managed to get any form together at all. So I think we're on now? No, we're on 3. So if we get a win, if we then beat Young Boys, we'll be on 9. And then if we get a point, 10 points will be through. My issue would be if we draw on Wednesday, we then go to Atalanta and they are going to have their momentum. They're then playing us at home, and you don't want to give them that. We need to give them a lesson on Wednesday, make sure they're dented for when we then go and play against them away. And if we can get that win, I think it's plain sailing there on. It's still in our hands though, which is good. Even after a poor start, that win against Villarreal has still left it in our own hands.
Let's not talk about it being in our own hands. We've seen how that goes for Manchester United in the Champions League in the recent past. But
but it is, but it is, and I mean their performances at the start of this season have been all right. They're doing all right in their league. From what I read earlier on, they're just outside the European place. I think they're sixth, but Juventus is seventh. No one's had only Mourinho's had a good start to the season. It looks like if you're looking for the outside in Serie A. But yeah, but I think they lost against Juventus, even when Juventus were going through their tough spell. And then I think they drew against the Milan clubs. I know, I think they just lost against AC Milan.
They've just come back in form at the right time. They scored 3 goals for the first time, I think, in 15 games this weekend. So they're coming into form right before facing Manchester United, as it happens with almost every team that faces us somehow.
Mm-hmm. But I also think on that, Zapata's just got back to full fitness as well. I think he came on against at the weekend and he scored a goal. And he's a very good player. He knows how to put the ball in the back of the net. Look, they've got options. I think the fact that they've shown that they can, go and score a few goals away from home at the weekend, I think shows a lot. Something that we didn't really manage to do this weekend ourselves. So ultimately, that we're going in off of the back of a loss. They're going off the back of a win. Yeah, football's very, very different. They're a well-drilled team. It's going to be a very tough game. Again, it's a different formation for us to work out. They play with the 2 strikers, which makes me very concerned about potentially an unfit Harry Maguire and Lindelof at the back there. If I'm Ollie, I don't know. I wouldn't go 3 at the back. You don't want to go alien at home in the Champions League. You don't want to do that. I'd understand it if we're in Italy, but not at home. So you've got to be really sensible with what you do if you're Ollie.
So Ben, why don't you give us your predicted lineup as well while you're at it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. De Gea all day long. Best player for us this season so far. How Ronaldo took the Player of the Month awards over David De Gea, I have no idea. He has been phenomenal. And again, even against Leicester, he didn't have the best game ever. He conceded 4 goals, but he was probably our best player on the pitch. That saved on the Tielemans strike was just out of this world. It's magnificent. So yeah, De Gea in goal. Wan-Bissaka's obviously back from the ban, so I'd definitely still play Wan-Bissaka and Shaw on the wings. That's if Shaw's fit. Again, and I hate to say it because I think everyone picks on it, but Shaw's just not looked fit for me this season.
No.
And I don't understand how he's not fit, because when he was last season, he was at his very best. His very best. He looked after himself. He was phenomenal. This season, I don't know how he hasn't taken that momentum on. He's not looked there. Positionally, he's been poor. He's been making the wrong decisions. Again, he just hasn't looked fit. But I'd still play him because he has to make up that fitness somewhere. And if you take him out the side, where's he going to get it from? And I suppose defence is the biggest contention. Lindelof has to play for me. Varane's going to be out. But then it'd be Eric Bailly. Maguire showed nothing to me that he was fit. He's by far our best defender on any given day of the week. I think is fantastic. And I'm his biggest fan, so I can say that. But he's not fit. He clearly wasn't fit. We all knew he wasn't going to be fit, and he wasn't fit. You don't play him. You rest him for Liverpool. I know that goes back on that we need to win our home games in the Champions League, and that's really important. But you do. Like, you've got Liverpool coming up. Eric Bailly and Lindelof should be able to do the job. They're 2 good enough defenders to be. We've got 2 good wing backs. But then with that in mind, I would also then play Fred and McTominay in the middle. You need that industrial, the dynamism. You need hard-working players in the middle there. So Fred and McTominay start for me. And do you know what? I'm going to go very different here. This won't be the team, but this is what I would do. If you're going to play Ronaldo, you need to have creators around him. Mason Greenwood is a fantastic footballer, is a generational talent. He's going to be a goal scorer. He's going to be a machine. But he's selfish because he's a number 9 at heart. And Ronaldo doesn't need selfish players around him. He needs players who will pick up the ball anywhere in that box and look for him. And 9 times out of 10, Greenwood won't do that. 9 times out of 10, Rashford won't do that either. Now, Rashford's just coming back into fitness. So here's what I would do. I'd play Sancho on the right, Bruno in the middle, Van der Beek slightly towards the left. Ollie's done it before. I know it's not his position, but he's done it before. I'd play Van der Beek or Pogba. Okay, or Pogba. Van der Beek or Pogba. You can take either one. maybe Paul Pogba plays over Van der Beek. So let's go Pogba even. And then I'll play Ronaldo up top. Because Sancho and Pogba look for the assist more than they do the back of the net. And that's what Ronaldo needs to feed off of. You've also got Bruno in there. You don't need to worry about because of McTominay and Fred, about Sancho and Pogba tracking back either. They've got more than enough defensive cover at home. That's what I'll go for. So there we go. My front four, sorry, just to repeat that, would probably be Sancho, Bruno, Pogba, and Ronaldo. That's how you get the balance, because you've got creators in there. You've got the industrial. I want to say industrialism, but I don't think that's a word. But do you know what I mean? You've got that work rate in the middle. You've got a solid backline. You've then got enough creators around Ronaldo to help give him opportunities to score goals, and I think that's what's important.
I find it. I completely agree with you in two aspects. Actually, is that Mason Greenwood has looked to shoot every time he's got the ball. I know he got that great goal against Leicester, but I was at the game. I was at Old Trafford and Aston Villa, and like you could see that there were passes on, but he wasn't willing to make them. He was just kept shooting.
But that's fine, Prasham, as well. That's fine, because he's a goal scorer at heart, and I want to see him do that. But that's not how you get the best out of Ronaldo. And you don't sign Ronaldo not to get the best out of him. And by the way, you don't even turn around and go, well, I've got Mason Greenwood, I'm not going to sign Ronaldo. You've got the opportunity to sign Ronaldo. You sign Cristiano Ronaldo, but you've got to get the best out of him. And you're only going to get the best out of him and get him scoring goals if you give him the opportunities to score goals.
Yeah.
With young players like Rashford and Greenwood out on the flanks, although they're fantastic and phenomenal, and they will be needed at times to start, going through patches like this, you need to just make sure Ronaldo gets the ball and make sure that he's putting it in the back of the net, because that's what's going to be most important.
I also feel that all of last season, we kept on crying out that we don't have a right winger. We don't have someone to stretch Pele on that side. And we played Mason Greenwood there as a makeshift right winger. But now that we've got Jadon Sancho, somehow we're very happy to continue playing Mason Greenwood there. And we haven't played Sancho in his position for more than 45 minutes cumulatively. And Sancho has not played 90 minutes in any game, which I find baffling personally, that a player who goes away to England, has every defense on toast, cannot play for 90 minutes in a Premier League game, in a League Cup game, in a Champions League game, because he has to be good enough to survive 90 minutes, right? And you have to play him in his preferred position for him to settle into the sort of game. So I don't understand. I love Mason and I want him to play. And that's the thing with sort of a great team, that you've got all these players, but you can't fit them all in. And I feel Sancho needs to play on that right-hand side. You can't go one season complaining that we can't stretch play, and then when you have that player, not play him in that position. So I completely agree with you there. I just had a bit of a laugh on my face when he said Van der Beek, because there's as much chance of him playing as there is of pigs flying.
But do you see why I mentioned Van der Beek or Pogba in that position? Because ultimately there are two players there that aren't selfish, and they're not going to want to look for the back of the net every time they get the ball. And that's really important when you've got someone like Ronaldo in your team. You need to have people, and more people there, moving the lines. They've got to move the lines. They've got to shift the front. You know what Rashford and Greenwood are going to do? They're literally going to sit, where am I? Over here, out wide, and they're going to go like that. They're going to go. They're not going to go straight. They're not going to trip back, cut inside, look for the ball over the top. They're literally every single time going to go like that towards the goal, because that's all they want to do. They want to score goals, which is, by the way, that is absolutely fine if you are looking to sit back and counter-attack a teams. But Ollie's always looking to press, and Ollie's always looking to try and find us to have the ball and put together good attacks. The only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we can sustain consistent attacks, especially at home. That's where you need dynamic creativity around the front men. And that's exactly what Pogba, Sancho, Bruno will bring to this team. Again, the issue still is there. How do you get the balls into those players? Because you've got Fred and McTominay in the middle of the park, and Wan-Bissaka doesn't move the ball particularly well. And I don't think really Shaw does either, especially not at the moment. Then Bayern Lindelof again. We could say Spear all day talking about those guys. But if you want to get the best out of Ronaldo at home at Old Trafford, you want to sustain attacks, you want to actually have 17 shots on goal and get 15 of them on target, you need to give him the opportunities. You need to have movement in and around your front line and players looking to create. And I think that's our issue at the moment. We don't have that at all.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I mean, I do think Marcus Rashford can probably do that once he comes into the team. We obviously haven't seen, he barely played and he obviously got the goal, but
Good
I
goal, by the
really,
way.
yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it feels so good to see him back on the pitch doing what he
Mhm.
does, and he's just a dream to watch on and off the
Mhm.
pitch. So I mean, kudos to him. But what I feel personally is that he could be that player, because the one thing that Rashford has that in maybe the likes of Pogba don't, is that he has a lot of industry. He doesn't mind putting in that shift, running up and down sort of that left hand side. That could actually sort of bring the best out of Ronaldo, because then Rashford takes care of the pressing side of things and he can progress the ball forward, dribble the ball forward, obviously. And it yet remains to be seen whether he can look up and find the pass and find Ronaldo. But I do
Mhm.
think that him coming back is a big plus for this team and for Oli as well, because it adds that dimension to the team on the left hand side. He can hold that position down, and obviously he's a proven player in the Premier League as well. But you
Would you start
alluded
him,
to,
Prashant? Would you start him
no,
on Wednesday? No.
I actually would start him against Liverpool, and this is what I was going to come to.
Mhm.
Actually, my next question is that you alluded that Maguire might be rested for the Liverpool game. I think I would rest Rashford to bring him off the bench, and then start him in that Liverpool game, because he is
Mhm.
that kind of player. His career is essentially sort of, if you look at a highlights reel of Marcus Rashford, it's always he's there at the big moment for Manchester United, and that doesn't get bigger than Liverpool. So I would start him in that game. But do you think Oli is going to rest any other players this Wednesday, because
No,
it is make or
no,
break, isn't it?
sorry, no, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna butt in there, but no, I again, like we've all seen that viral clip of Sir Alex talking to Khabib, and I completely agree with him. You're at the start of a Premier League season. You you play your best team, and if you don't know your best team, then what have you been doing all summer and during the two international breaks and at the start of the season? Ultimately, we know what our best team more or less is. We know the players that need to be in it. Maybe two or three switching in and around it. That's relatively normal. Ultimately, um, I think injuries play a part. I think Shaw was rushed back before the international break for Everton, and I think that hindered us against Everton. Tele should have started that game. So it's, well, okay, how fit is Luke Shaw going into this game, which is a decision that needs to be made. But that's not, it's not resting him as such. That's a player having an injury and actually having the time off he needs to have. The same with Harry Maguire. So I wouldn't necessarily rest anyone. If players are fit, you play them. Um, but also you've got to be intelligent with that. And I mentioned this the other day with Harry Maguire and with footballers in general now. They just want to play. A footballer isn't going to say no. Like, how many times, I don't know if you push out and play like five-a-side or anything like that, but the amount of times that I've got a niggle and I can feel it in my knee or my leg, and I know that I'm going to be absolutely useless that evening because I love playing football so much. I'll go and
Yeah,
play anyway.
yeah.
Like, these players get paid to play football. It's their profession. Yes, maybe they should take better care of themselves from that point of view. But sometimes you need to have someone step in. For instance, I work in sales. I would sell any of my business's product to anyone that wants it. But sometimes for the business, the company that I'm selling to isn't the right fit. That's when
Hmm.
then I need my boss to step in and go, don't worry about that sale as much because I don't think this is the right decision for the long term. Good job making that affiliation and making that contact, but we'll leave this one. Move on to the
But
next one, kind
then,
of thing.
just to sort of button here for a second, this is exactly what Ollie did to Rashford, right?
Mm-hmm.
He knew that Rashford was injured, and Ollie came out after the game and in the press conference said that no, Marcus wanted to play. And I just
Mm-hmm.
went there, but you're the manager. The player is going to want to play, but that doesn't mean you play him. And I
No.
completely agree with you that you cannot play players and rush them back from injury. Maguire, the day before, all the sort of coverage was that he is not ready, and then suddenly
Mm-hmm.
he's put into the game, and you could say Maguire was directly responsible for 3 out of 4 goals that were scored by Leicester. But can you really blame a person? And I might be reading too much into this, but every single time Maguire was going up for a corner, he looked out of it. He looked breathless. It just didn't
Mm-hmm.
seem like he wanted to go for the ball with normally he wants to go. And that's another thing that he's going to miss. But that intent to just go for the ball wasn't even there on that day.
Well, it's a muscular injury, isn't it? So if he jumps up and then lands, any opportunity of landing funny, you're going to make it even worse. And I didn't see him jump for one ball. You look at their last goal, the Daka goal, where he just stood still. Um, Yeah, because he didn't want to. That's not Harry Maguire. Look, everyone might spawn hate on it. You might love him or hate him. He's one of those characters. He's not fancy, is he? But you watch that last goal and you tell me that's Harry. That's the Harry
No,
Maguire, Like,
no.
be honest with yourself. Like, wobble your head if you genuinely think that is, because it's not. He just clearly wasn't fit at all. And yeah, you're right. It comes down to the manager, and that's his biggest mistakes that he keeps making is he won't trust his squad. He won't trust his squad. I even thought about, in that second half, I was watching it. I was like, it's ridiculous how much that game needed Donny van der Beek. And that's not just me saying it for the sake of saying it. Bruno wasn't playing particularly well. And Bruno's game is always elevated when he's able to press and United are able to turn over the ball quickly. But he wasn't making himself free as an option for an out ball. Neither was Pogba. At times, Sancho was, but Greenwood wasn't, because again, he had one intention, hugging the touchline and cutting inside as and when he could get that ball. Donny van der Beek finds those holes, picks them smartly, comes into play, interlinks a bit more closely with the midfield too. The game was made for him, but Ollie wasn't willing to gamble. He brought on McTominay and Lingard towards the end.
No, I mean,
for me,
talking to you is like
don't
talking to a reflection of me, because we did a video just yesterday talking about Oli, and this is the exact thing I said, that he doesn't trust the team, he trusts
doesn't
the
squad his squad
players, and he'll just keep on playing those players till the sort of, yeah, it's just frustrating. But
it's bonkers. It's bonkers as well, because from everything we know, like we said at the start of the show, it's sort of like we're coming full circle here. Not once have we seen an impression that the players don't love Ollie. And that actually everyone goes on about how his man management is second to none. And that's sort of what spurs him on and what players love about him, especially the big characters like Paul Pogba and stuff. So you just wonder, like, even Donny's come out and spoken well of Ollie, despite his, so to speak, treatment. I mean, ultimately, I still wonder what's going on in a training ground for him not to be getting games. And I still haven't seen enough from him during games to say that he deserves to start week in, week out. But when you can clearly see a hole that needs to be plugged by someone that can do that on the bench, and he's not doing it, you've just got to wonder, like, what is the issue then? What is going on? I'm completely with you. Like, it's baffling. It's baffling how he doesn't use his squad. And it is also baffling how he doesn't see these situations occur and reacts and makes a change and does something to alter the course, so to speak, because that is what is in his control. And I just saw a tweet a minute ago, and I do agree with it. But then also, part of me is like, well, the season's still not over, which is like you sign Varane, Sancho, and Ronaldo in a transfer window, and you've regressed. It's on the manager. Yeah, plain sight. Yeah, you're not wrong. But also, again, if you're judging United under Ollie on that game against Leicester, you're wrong to do so. I really do think that game elevated our flaws more than any other game. And I think if we'd won every game up to that Leicester game, and I know it's in hindsight, it would just be a bad day at the office. Like, if we had beaten Everton or beaten Villa and had won our game against Young Boys, like, people would just be calling it a bad day at the office. But because of everything that preceded it, it elevates it even more. And again, like I said, it makes our bad points look worse. I'm going to say this again. I said this before the Leicester game. I just want to see a Man United team against Atalanta that shows us some promise. I want to see a team that can put together some patterns of play. I don't want them to dominate the whole game and look like prime Barcelona or a free-flowing Real Madrid. I just want to see a team that can consistently sustain attacks and play to the strengths of the players on the pitch. And if we get that, it means that we found a certain balance. And I think we can really build on some confidence if we get that against Atalanta. And that's what I want to see more than anything.
Right. So let's just wrap this up, Ben. I'm going to ask you this. Atalanta, obviously a decent, very, very good team, as you've said. Zapata is back. Ilicic is in good form as well. They have got, I cannot pronounce his name, but I'll try, Cooper Miners in midfield, who is a promising player. I know I've butchered that, but they've got like a very good sort of set of players that play well together. So what is your prediction going into this game?
Well, I was going to say 6-0 until you decided to give me that devastating sort of brief overview of Atalanta, mate. Blimey, what have you done to me? You've made me more nervous than I was, Prashant. What's that all about? Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I was concerned I've been more concerned going into games in European competition than Atalanta. I think Villarreal are a better side than Atalanta. I think it's interesting. Obviously, they're top in the group at the moment. They're not in an awful vein of form. I think they're well drilled. What works for Atalanta is that they're extremely well drilled, and they can also play a couple of different systems as well. Sort of like a southpaw and orthodox boxer. Until you get in that ring, you don't know which one's gonna, if they're good at both, which fighter's gonna turn up, and you're gonna have to adopt your style or change your style. I think the issue that I worry with Atalanta more than anything is how will United cope going into the game with how we set up versus how we're going to have to adapt during the game, because that's something that we're useless at doing. As again, especially under Ole. But we have been, to be fair, useless at doing that since Fergie went, and at times against Sir Alex, we struggled in games with the same thing. So it's a really tricky thing. But look, if we can get at them and we can sustain attacks, I think we'll beat them. I really want it to be comfortable because I really feel like going into the Liverpool game, we need that bit of confidence. I'll go 3-1 United. I think we'll do it. I think we can maybe go 3-0 up. Well. I think they'll score. It wouldn't surprise me if they even score first and we have to come back. But I'm gonna go 3-1, and I'm gonna go with a Ronaldo goal. I want Sancho to score so badly. So, and by the way, Sancho needs a game time. He has to start, and he's definitely not the worst player that we've got out there at the moment in an attacking sense. So, yeah, and then maybe Rashford to pop up with one off the bench as well, which would be quite nice. So, yeah, I'm going to go 3-1, mate, and fingers crossed we can get the job done ahead of Liverpool. What are you going for, Prasham?
I was going to go for 3-1 as well. So, yeah.
Stop copying me. We're too alike. What's going on here?
I was going to go for 3-1, and I think Ronaldo to get a brace. And I was actually going for a Bruno Fernandes goal. But nice. Yeah, I wouldn't mind Sancho scoring. I wouldn't mind Rashford scoring. I just want the 3 points at this point and get on with it. Because, I mean, we need to win games. We need to get back in the swing of things. And it has to start from Atalanta and move on to Liverpool. Because I cannot even imagine or stand the thought of even losing that game.
Do you know what, though? One thing that I do want to say is I know that the last Champions League run was an absolute nightmare, but we do got to remember that actually within that Champions League run, we had the horribleness of having our final 2 games away from home. Let's just remember that obviously we've got this home game now, then we're away to Atalanta and Villarreal, but we end it with a home game against Young Boys. Which ultimately again gives us a little bit of breathing space. So we have to win. If we win on Wednesday, it sets us up really, really nicely, because as I said, a win there, a point from our 2 away games, even just a point from our 2 away games. If we can get 2, even better. If we can get 4, it's done and dusted. And it means that we don't have to worry as much about that home game against Young Boys, but we have always got that cushion of the fact that we've got Young Boys at the end. So yeah, fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. I'm always the optimist, never the pessimist.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Ben, for joining us. Basically, what you've said is that it's not all doom for Manchester United. The last game is not what you should judge Ole by. And essentially what the long-winded answer you gave for how to get Ronaldo into the game is essentially we need to find a Wayne Rooney for him. So thank you for joining us today.
And Tevez and Park Ji-sung. And Michael Carrick, if we can.
And Paul Scholes, Ratic.
And Scholes.
But thank you, Ben, so much for coming on. Do check out All for United. It is doing fantastic content for United across the board. Men's, women's, academy. There are some brilliant people who are as passionate as we are about Manchester United. We want our team to do well, and we hope Atalanta is where it starts. Thank you, Ben, again. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe to our channel as well, and we'll see you later.